What is going on, traders? We got a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about the SPY, the triple Qs, Nvidia, and of course, we got to talk about the VIX because you guys have been asking me about the VIX over and over, and I keep forgetting to talk about the VIX. Before we start, like, subscribe, comment your thoughts below. Let's get into the video. So we're going to start the video a little bit different, and we're going to talk about Nvidia. For the past 2 weeks, I've been pretty bearish on the market, right? And we saw exactly that happen. We saw the SPY drop from 608 all the way to 580, 579, give or take. We saw the triple Qs drop from the 530s, high 530s, all the way towards 505. And despite all of that, despite me being bearish on all of that, Nvidia was one of the only few things that I was actually bullish on. Now, you don't have to believe me. You're welcome to go back and check. I even have a thumbnail saying that Nvidia is ready to break out. I even gave you guys a trade that institutions were taking where they were taking the 140 calls for January 24th. And it looks like that trade is absolutely in profit. Now, if you check the community tab, I do recommend this. This is where I post my charts, my idea. 2 days ago, I said Nvidia currently at the inverse head and shoulders neckline. This thing gets above 145 and hold. Pack your bags. We're going to the moon. And so the question is, what do I mean by the moon? Well, I think it's safe to say that Nvidia is going to head towards 150. Now, what's important to note here at the 150 area is that there is a lot of bears in this area. I mean, a lot of bears. You don't need a volume profile to see this. It's clear as day. You got bearish candles here, bullish candle, bearish candle, and then you get very liquid to the downside right here, right? And so I do urge some type of caution once you head towards the 150s because we can see some type of rejection. Now, I don't know if it's going to be a major rejection or anything like that, but again, I do think you should be cautious within this area because bears are very much present here. Now, in regards to price target, my first price target obviously is 150. Now, do I think Nvidia can head higher? Absolutely. I do think Nvidia can head towards the 160s. Highest, if we're being optimistic, if we're being greedy, we can see a move all the way towards the top of this rising wedge at around 165. And so let me actually map that out for you guys so you guys have a better idea here. So this will be somewhat of the ideal move that I'll be looking at, maybe a move towards 150 first. And if we manage to get above this area, which is very much possible considering the amount of news we have this week, we can see a move towards the top of this much bigger rising wedge. And if we just manage to get some type of false breakout, we can see a move towards 165 before seeing some type of breakdown on Nvidia. Now, what's important to note here, and I mentioned this, right? This inverse head and shoulders pattern. You got your shoulder here, head here, another shoulder here. I know there's a lot going on, so just bear with me. And then your neckline is right about here at around 145. Now, if we're talking about the projected move of this head and shoulders pattern, this inverse head and shoulders pattern, all you do is measure the top of the shoulder to the bottom of the head, and then you drag that measurement to the neckline break. So your neckline break will be right about here, and there you have it. You'll have a projected move all the way towards 160 on Nvidia. So that is the move that I am looking forward to on Nvidia. Now, if we're talking about downside here, you want to see Nvidia get back below 143, and then after that, you're looking at a move towards 141, and then you'll be looking at a move towards this 139 gap fill. Okay. Now, if we zoom out, I did mention that we are heading towards the top of a rising wedge pattern. You're actually looking at two here, right? You have a much bigger one here on the daily time frame, and then you have a much smaller one here that's showing on the 4-hour time frame. So you have two rising wedges within one, right? Or one rising wedge within one. I don't know, but you get the idea. You got two rising wedges, right? And so we're clearly heading to the top of the rising wedge if we're being optimistic. And so I would look for a move towards the 160s. Minimum I'm looking at is about 150. And then if you want to, be somewhat conservative or intermediate, you're looking at a move towards 155 on Nvidia. And then after that, we'll have to see what happens. So again, be careful at the 150 area. Bears are very much present here. We do have a lot of news. We got FOMC minutes, ADP, non-farm payrolls. We got a lot of news this week, so it's very much possible that we just gap up above this area if the market decides to be extremely bullish, right? And so that's what I'm looking at for Nvidia. And so we obviously have to talk about the semiconductor ETFs. And so what's interesting with SMH, which is a semiconductor ETF, Nvidia is its number one holding. SMH is breaking out, so that's a good sign for Nvidia. But the only issue here, guys, is that SMH has broken out before, and it has like multiple false breakouts. You have a false breakout here, false breakout here, false breakout here, false breakout here. Now, I do think this is going to be different, and the reason why I think that is that you do have somewhat of an inverse head and shoulders pattern here. Now, it's not the cleanest, I will say that much. you can argue that this may be some type of double bottom. Regardless, SMH is breaking out. And so if we're talking about a projected move, I would be looking at a move all the way towards 260. Now, if we're being optimistic, then we could look at a move towards this gap fill all the way at the 270s. Now, one thing I tell you guys all the time on this channel is that gaps have very, very strong support and resistance. And you see it here. I mean, you see a rejection here, right? You see a rejection here. You see another rejection here, right? So you see two rejections here at around 262. So this is why I would urge caution in this area, because just because we're heading towards this area, if we, actually do head towards this area, right, we can easily just false breakout right here. But if we just so happen to start heading towards this area, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to head towards this gap fill. It can easily just tease us. We hit around 262, 265, right where this guy is, and then we see some type of rejection from there, and then we'll have to see what happens from there. So SMH does look good. Nvidia looks good. So we still want to be cautious though. Okay, I hope that I'm getting that point across, that we still want to be somewhat cautious once we start getting towards these major key levels, which is 260, 262, give or take on SMH, and then Nvidia you're looking at around 150 and higher. Okay, so SOXX, another semiconductor ETF. So SOXX, same scenario as SMH. You are looking at a falling wedge here, like a massive falling wedge. So that is a good sign for Nvidia. Once again, I think as Nvidia is like its third holding or second holding. I could be wrong. Feel free to check for yourself. But you have a rejection here, right? You have a rejection here, rejection here, rejection here, and you have multiple false breakouts here. And so we could do the same thing. Again, I don't think that's going to be the case. I do think this is actual breakout. And so if we're talking about a move towards the upside, we can head as high as about the 240s on SOXX. Now, how what that correlates into in regards to Nvidia's price target, I don't know. Feel free to comment below if you have an idea, but we could see a move towards the 240s on SOXX. And again, you do have a fair value gap and a gap all the way towards the 260s, 257, give or take on SOXX. And so if we do get a false breakout, and if we do just so happen to break back into this pattern, which I didn't mention on SMH, if you break back into this pattern, then things get pretty ugly for Nvidia. You're heading towards at least 210 if you just so happen to break back below this pattern, right where these guys are. You see multiple bounces in this area here, and if we break below this, that's where things get really, really, really bad for semiconductors. So I'm not counting on that happening just yet. We'll see. So again, just be careful once you start heading towards these levels. 240, 262 on SMH, and then 150 and higher on Nvidia. And so now we have to talk about the SPY, right? We have to talk about the SPY and the triple Qs. So what's interesting here about the SPY is that you are looking, well, first let's go to the daily time frame real quick. I want you guys to get an idea. So far we are trading within this channel. We're trading within this rising channel on the daily time frame, as you guys can see. You've been trading in here forever. I bring it up I try to bring it up every week because I like to, erase everything and start all over from scratch. I think that's very healthy as a trader to do, so you're not having some super bias, and obviously the market can change sentiments pretty fast on you. So we go to the 4-hour time frame, and as you guys can see, we are trading within a symmetrical triangle here. Now, my sentiments still remain the same. We should be careful at around 598 600 on the SPY. Okay, I still have the same sentiments that I had before. Once you get up here within this area, you really want to practice, being careful, practice some type of discipline. Okay, that's just me. I'm going to do that. You do what you want with this information. So we want to be careful here. Now, again, you could be looking at a double bottom scenario. All time highs is possibly on the table if you get above 602. So if we get above 602, then we can definitely start talking about all-time highs. So you'll have your bottom here, not a bottom here, and then your neckline will be at around 602 for this potential double bottom. Not only that, but you'll have a breakout of the symmetrical triangle. So very, very good sign if we just so happen to have two of those situations happen at once. But once again, you want to be careful between 598 and 602. Okay, I think I said 602, 600, 602, somewhere around this area, supply and demand zone. Regard, yeah, just be careful. Okay, hope you guys get the idea here. So, bears are very much present in this area, just like I told you guys with Nvidia with the 150. Bears are very much present within this area, right? So remember what happened last time when I warned you guys about being careful around 600 and 604, because again, bears are very much present. And look what happened. We got towards 602 and we saw that massive rejection towards the downside. And so I'm urging caution once again that you need to be careful between 598 and 602. You get above 602, then we can start heading towards previous highs, 604, 608. And then if we're talking about all-time highs, we can head as high as about 614 on the SPY. So yeah, things are looking okay for upside. I'm not optimistic just yet. I'm not super bullish or anything like that. I'm still leaning towards bearish right now. I do think we're going to see more downside in the near future. But if we don't, that's fine. We're just going to trade the opposite direction. Doesn't matter. All right, triple Qs. So I put in the community tab as well. We go up, we go up, we go up. So yeah, so I pretty much said FOMC minutes this week. Is this pump leading into a lower high on the triple Qs? Will this confirm the descending triangle on the 4 hour frame? And so you scroll down, there is a descending triangle on the 4 hour time frame on the triple Q. So let's actually map that out because I accidentally erased it, but you will have your high here, lower high here, and then you will have a flat bottom right here, and that will give you a descending triangle. Okay, so you have your bottom here, high, lower high, and so like I said in the last video, before we get too excited, this can easily lead into a lower high. So we could be looking at a lower high between 223, not two, 523 and 526 before we see another breakdown. So it's important not to get too excited. We want to get confirmation before we start screaming all-time highs. Okay. So your key levels here is 529. We keep talking about this level where I want to see the Qs get above 529, 530 psych level before we start talking about previous highs and even all-time highs. Okay. Now, if we manage to get above that level, then I definitely will start talking about all-time highs. Okay, guaranteed. Okay, but for now, I'm still leaning for another drop until the market proves me wrong. That is where I'm leaning towards for now. Okay, so that's what I'm looking at for the triple Qs. Now, if we're talking about downside 515, we get back below 515, you're pretty liquid all the way back towards 510, and then from there you're heading towards the bottom of this descending triangle. You break below 505. That is where things get pretty domestic. We won't talk about that till we get there. So again, look for this descending triangle on your 4 hour time frame if you just so happen to trade patterns. If you don't, then look for your own type of confirmation. Doesn't necessarily matter to me, but you do what you want. Do what works for you. Okay, so that's what I'm looking at for the triple Qs. All right, so now of course we got it. Well, actually, we're going to talk about Bitcoin. Then we'll get into the VIX, guys. All right, so Bitcoin is at this level. We talked about this level of 99,500 and it's continuing to hit this wall right here. So it looks like Bitcoin is trying to break out. Now, once again, until Bitcoin gets above 100K, I'm not really interested in it. If it gets above 100K, then you can start talking about some crazy move, guys. I mean, you can start talking about moves towards 102. Actually, let me show you guys. Let me show you guys how crazy this is going to look. Now, if you've been following my channel, you know about illiquid areas because I told you guys about illiquid areas. I made a whole video about illiquid areas and trading them. And right here, you get very illiquid towards 102, 102K. And then once again, you break above 103K, you're getting very illiquid all the way towards 105K. You break above that, you're getting very illiquid towards 106, 107K. So it gets pretty crazy back to the upside if you get back above 100K on Bitcoin. So be on the lookout for that right now. It looks like bulls are really trying to push past this area. I think it's going to happen. We'll just have to wait and see. And also, you are breaking, you currently, well, not currently, you did break out of this falling wedge pattern, which is a bullish pattern. So that's what I'm looking at for Bitcoin. So let's talk about the VIX and then I'll get you guys up out of here. VIX. So the VIX. So we talked about this in the Discord, right? I do think the VIX is going to break out again. Okay. I don't know when. Okay. I'm not going to say when, but I do think the VIX is going to break out again. So 16. Right now, we are at the level of 16. You got your support here. We closed above this level here. And so, why I think this is going to eventually break out is because this area up here, again, we talked about the liquid areas, we talked about fair value gaps. There's a huge, and I mean a huge, fair value gap in this area between 20 and 24. And I think VIX is going to head towards 24 sometime in the near future. Now, when that happens, I can't say for sure. Now, if we break below 16, then we can head towards this gap fill at around, what is this, 15? I want to say 15, 14.8. So you head towards this gap fill right here, and then we'll have to see what happens. It's also important to note that VIX does have a lot of gaps to the downside. So that is a good sign for bulls. But once again, that doesn't take out the fact that at some point in time in the future, we're going to have to mitigate this area and have as some type of liquidity grab towards 24 on the VIX. Now, what's interesting is that our Discord bot did alert 18 calls for January 22nd. So that is something to look out for. We could see a move towards 18 or 20 all over again on the VIX, and obviously, if that happens, the market will, drop, right? And so that's pretty much all I got for this video, guys. It is a late video. My computer overheated, so I have to wait for it to cool down. Any questions, let me know in the comments below. I try my best to respond to all the comments. If you agree, let me know. If you disagree, let me know. Just keep it respectful as always. It's okay to have a different opinion without being disrespectful. All right. So other than that, that's all I have. Discord link will be in the description below. Until the next video, traders, you have a good one.